Welcome, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way with me, April Yee, on Transformation Talk Radio. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care. I'm here to support you in getting out of your own way. So, what does getting in your own way look like? Well, how about letting other people define your value and worth, ignoring your body by not taking care of yourself, and people pleasing? These are just a few ways I've gotten in my own way. In this show, I'll share new perspectives on self-care practices so you can discover options and choices for expanding what's possible for you and your life. In each episode, I have questions for you, and when you take the time to answer them, they'll help in building up your belief about yourself. I believe that when we get good with ourselves, we get good with our lives and the world. Get Out of Your Own Way starts now. Hi, everyone. I'm April Yee, and you are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way on Transformation Talk Radio, episode 6. The concepts I talk about in each episode are things I wish I learned sooner to support myself and get out of my own way. So I hope these ideas are coming to you when you need them. And before I start talking about today's topic, I do want to share a personal update. So I have 3 jobs right now. One of them is as a holistic life coach. The other one is that I work at Stanford part-time, facilitating women's groups in their graduate school of business. And then the other one is that I work with one of my friends in his nonprofit that works with incarcerated youth. And I recently did have a 4th job for 7 years. For the past 7 years, I've been a home care provider for my elderly aunt. And she, in August last year, went into hospice care for heart failure. And she's had heart issues her whole life. And so it wasn't a huge surprise when that happened. But she did recently pass away earlier this month. And that was after being in hospice care for 8 months. And so, it's bittersweet because I'm going through a transition phase. It's not only losing my aunt, but also like losing a role that I've had for the past 7 years. So this year I have been putting myself out there in a bigger way because I do want to grow my coaching business. And because my aunt did pass away, I will have time now to do that. So again, it's like bittersweet. There's this, the grief and the sadness of losing my aunt, and there's the opportunity and openness and kind of like excitement of being able to spend more time doing something that I really want to do for myself in my life. And that actually kind of relates to the topic today. Today, I'll be talking about how our lives are 50-50. So 50% positive emotional experiences and 50% negative emotional experiences. And in the last episode, I talked about why our emotions are such an important aspect of our lives, that they drive our actions, and how we can practice feeling and processing our emotions for our own benefit. But what happens when we think we should feel happy all the time? There's a quote from Gretchen Rubin, who wrote a book called The Happiness Project, and it says, negative emotions like loneliness, envy, and guilt have an important role to play in a happy life. They're big flashing signs that something needs to change. So we can start to see from this quote why negative emotions are important for our lives. If we try to avoid negative emotions by trying to feel happy and good all the time, we may be missing important signals that will actually help us create better lives for ourselves. I also want to note that sometimes we say negative and positive emotions, and I want to offer another way to think about emotions. We can call them comfortable and uncomfortable emotions to differentiate between them. I say this because positive and negative are judgments that can cloud our thoughts about how we should be feeling or how we want to be feeling. And comfortable And uncomfortable are also judgments, but they have a different flavor to them when it comes to our emotions. So even trying on those terms for emotions, comfortable and uncomfortable, when we feel them, can shift our experience of them. We still know that we'd rather feel a comfortable emotion than an uncomfortable one, and we can recognize that in our bodies. And when I say try on, I do mean like trying on a piece of clothing. We can try on thoughts or beliefs and see how we experience them and how we feel when we try them on. We might not think a piece of clothing works for us until we try it on. And we might not think a certain thought or belief works for us until we try it on. And ultimately, it might not work, but we needed to try it on before we could know for sure. Or it could work really well, and we wouldn't have known unless we tried it on. Okay, so this is what can happen sometimes when we avoid negative emotions and try to feel happy all the time. There's a term, toxic positivity, where we try to silver line or bright side things too soon. And this means we try to feel better about a situation by thinking about it in a different way. And this skill is really useful, but I want to offer that we are usually better served to feel uncomfortable emotions first and process through them because that is the truth of our experience. So if we feel an uncomfortable emotion and try to bright side it too soon, it's like we're denying the reality of our emotional experience. We're saying, this emotion is so uncomfortable that I don't want to feel it. I'll just pretend that it isn't there by changing the way I think about the situation. And like I said, changing the way we think about a situation can be useful, but after we've processed our emotions around it. So, for example, let's say we didn't get a job we really wanted. We might think, I thought I was perfect for that role, or I really wanted to work for that company, and now I won't get to, or even I won't find something better than that. The feelings created by those thoughts might be disappointment, discouragement, maybe hopelessness. And if we don't allow ourselves to feel those feelings and instead try to think right away, oh, there will be another opportunity for me soon, then we aren't really allowing ourselves to process through the disappointment, the discouragement, and the hopelessness. And those feelings are still there, but we are covering them up or trying to avoid them or resist them. And this isn't to say that we need to feel the disappointment for days and weeks, but we do want to feel it until it moves out of our body naturally. And that will take as long as it takes. For some people, it might be minutes. For others, it might be hours. And for others, it might be a day or two. And when we let ourselves practice processing emotions, we will see that different emotions can be with us for different lengths of time. And once we allow ourselves to process the initial uncomfortable emotions, then we can change our thoughts about the circumstance if we want to. And at that point, we may want to think there are plenty of other great opportunities out there, or I'll keep searching and applying until I find a good match. And at that point, because we've processed the uncomfortable emotions first, we do have space to feel the comfortable emotions that those new thoughts create. And those new thoughts might create feelings of determination, focus, commitment, even excitement about what's possible. And so we don't need to be in a hurry to get out of our uncomfortable emotions, even though we probably want to, because the whole point is that they are uncomfortable. And that's why we want to move through them quickly or bypass them altogether. And I want to offer that when we practice allowing emotions to be there and when we practice processing them, we will find out that experiencing any emotion is possible and it won't kill us. So when we try to feel happy all the time, we're ignoring a very important part of our experience. And where the 50-50 comes in is this. So let's go back to the example where you didn't get the job you wanted. The uncomfortable emotions you feel are the 50% negative or uncomfortable emotional experience. But let's say during the same day, you found out your best friend and her family finally had the winning offer on a house they've been looking for. And so you feel happy and excited hearing that news. That's adding to the 50% positive emotional experience of the day. And it's not always going to be that one thing balances out the other evenly. It might not, it might be in the same hour that you experience positive and negative emotions, or it might be within a few minutes that you experience positive and negative emotions. Or it might be that for a couple of days, you feel good most of the time, and then something happens on the third day that brings you down in a big way. And even in that situation, it might not be a 50-50 even split. And this is just to illustrate, this concept is just to illustrate that our lives are not supposed to be 80% positive and only 20% negative, or anything other than 50-50, because the 50-50 is just the natural flow of our normal human lives. And when we can be open to that concept, it can create some relief for some people, because I think some people have burdened themselves with the idea that, oh, I need to be happy and feel good all the time. And so just understanding that this concept exists about the 50-50, then when we're in the 50% of the negative experience, we're like, okay, this is part of my life. Nothing has gone terribly wrong. And because we are human beings who can hold complexity, it's possible that in the midst of something sad happening, we can feel other emotions along the way. So I shared earlier that my aunt passed away. Her daughter, my cousin, is in the process of publishing her first novel. And while she was caring for her mom during hospice, she was also making a few rounds of edits to her novel and working with her publisher and her editor, and deciding when she would take her author photo, deciding what the cover of her book would look like. So she was probably feeling excited that her work will be coming into the world in a really big way, and also feeling all the emotions that come from caring for a loved one who is getting ready to die and say goodbye. So that's sort of like the 50-50 in action. And so, what happens when we don't want to experience the negative 50% of uncomfortable emotions? Most of us will engage in buffering activities. So, what is buffering and what does it look like? First, how many of us think we'd like to feel happy all the time? And what would that look like for us? It would look like feeling happy even when tragic things happen, like when we get injured or when we get into an accident or when someone we love dies. When we're trying to feel good and happy all the time, this is what can happen. So, in order to avoid the 50% negative feelings, we engage in false pleasures to put a buffer between us and the negative emotions. When we turn to false pleasures, it's called buffering. And buffering is any activity that we use to avoid our negative, uncomfortable emotions. And buffering can take many forms, and it includes eating, drinking alcohol, exercising, cleaning, organizing, working, shopping, Instagramming, Netflixing, anything that we do to avoid feeling negative emotions. And when we buffer, there are net negative consequences. So, besides not engaging with our negative emotions and allowing the 50-50, we might gain weight from overeating as our buffer, or we might go into consumer debt by overspending if spending is our buffer or shopping is our buffer. We might feel lethargic during the day because we overdrink at night, or we may use our time inefficiently because we're on social media or Netflix more than we want to be. And buffering also allows us to tolerate our lives the way it is instead of looking at the cause of our buffering. When we are tolerating our lives by buffering, it's like putting a band-aid over a sprained ankle instead of treating the actual cause of the pain. We use our buffering activity to pretend or convince ourselves that things are okay. But what is it we're distracting ourselves from when we buffer? What is the negative emotion we're avoiding? And why is the negative emotion even there? It's easier to buffer than to make potentially difficult decisions that will change our lives, even for the better. But when we don't look at the cause of our buffering, we'll continue to buffer and wonder why we feel stuck and don't know what to do. And so, if we really want to stop buffering, we need to stop the buffering behavior long enough to see what's under it. And so, how do we stop buffering? We stop the buffering action. We feel the discomfort that ensues from not engaging in the buffering action. And then we see what else is there. So, what feelings come up? What thoughts about our circumstances are creating those feelings? And doing this is simple, but it's usually not easy. And this is where working with a life coach can be helpful. And I do want to differentiate between the idea of buffering and doing things that actually do bring us joy. So, what brings you joy? One of the first ways I learned how to take better care of myself was by learning to ask myself the question, what brings me joy? And early in my holistic life coaching training, that was one of the questions my teacher offered. And at the time, I didn't know how to answer it. In the past, I had been focused on being productive and doing things that had a specific end result. And doing things that bring us joy might not have a productive end result, but we do them to inspire joy in ourselves and to know what joy feels like. Similar to myself in the past, when I'm working with my clients, it's not a surprise that some of them have no idea how to answer the questions, what do you want? Or what brings you joy? And this is partly because they've been too busy letting other people have what they want, or helping others get what they want, or thinking about what others might want. And this looks like saying, oh, I'll be fine with whatever you choose. Or I know you like pizza, so let's get that. Or you have great taste, so I'll let you choose. Or, okay, kids, we'll watch the movie you want. Or, okay, honey, we'll go where you want to go. And this is not to say that we stop being considerate or thoughtful about what others want, or we stop going with the flow sometimes, but rather we can just start thinking about what we truly want, what we truly like, and what we truly enjoy, just so we know that for ourselves. And we can still take part in and enjoy what others like, and we can learn to advocate for ourselves so others participate in what we like sometimes too. We don't need to force anyone to do it, and we don't need to force ourselves to do it if we don't want to. And sometimes we might choose to do something that isn't our preference because it's easier to do it than not to do it. It saves an argument or conflict from happening. And that's an intentional choice we make sometimes. And that's okay, as long as it doesn't become the default and create resentment for us because we keep saying yes to things we don't love doing. And when we can start knowing for ourselves what brings us joy and allow ourselves to partake in these things, we start to listen to and honor ourselves more deeply. And this is that way that I started to take care of myself even more, because this is part of caring for ourselves. to let ourselves experience joy and comfort and pleasure, even if they are small things to start with, like staying in your pajamas all day, baking something, knitting or crocheting, sitting in silence in the car, watching an episode or three of reality TV, buying hot apple cider at the farmer's market, or intentionally noticing the flowers on a walk. And if you're not sure yet how to answer the question, what brings you joy? You can consider these questions. What kind of flowers do you like? What fabrics feel good on your skin? What colors do you enjoy wearing? What scents do you love? What soothes you? And what have you been wanting to do, experience, eat, have, but haven't made time for yourself to do, experience, eat, or have that? And when is the next time you can make time to do those things? You can make a plan to make it happen for you. And when you do it, remember to thank yourself for making it happen. And so, if these are things that bring us joy, what's the difference between allowing ourselves some joy and false pleasure or buffering? So, what is the difference between that, allowing ourselves joy, and engaging in behaviors that create false pleasure or buffering? Sometimes buffering actions might look like we are doing things that bring us joy, like getting a sweet treat or having a nice glass of wine or purchasing a small gift for ourselves. And when we are experiencing joy, there's a peaceful, easy, celebratory feeling to it without net negative consequences. And the difference with buffering is that we are likely overdoing something and we might even feel out of control with it, like overeating, over drinking, overspending, over Instagramming, over Netflixing, overworking, over cleaning, or over exercising. And these things become false pleasures that have a net negative outcome, like I mentioned before. So when we overeat, we gain weight. When we overdrink, we end up with hangovers and half of the next day is ruined, or we might just feel lethargic in our body the next day and wonder why our brain is a little bit foggy. When we overspend, we go into debt or don't meet our savings goals. When we over Instagram, we lose time that could be used in more valuable ways. And when we are engaging in joyful activities, we're doing them for the joy of it, not to escape or avoid something. And I think that is probably the biggest difference between allowing ourselves to feel joy and do joyful activities versus buffering, is that when we're buffering, we are definitely using that activity to avoid feeling a negative emotion or to escape from something that feels very uncomfortable for us. And again, to stop buffering, we will need to stop the behavior that we're doing to put a buffer between us and the negative emotion. And also, we will need to allow ourselves to feel uncomfortable. That's how we actually know what's going on with our lives and being present with what's true for ourselves and telling ourselves the truth about what's going on for us so that we can make changes if we want to. And again, not making changes and buffering is the easier choice because we don't have to do anything hard when that happens, when we choose that. But when we stop buffering, we might find out that there is a hard decision that we'll need to make. And that comes with, doing hard things, having a hard conversation, having a difficult, maybe confrontation with someone, or having just to make a really difficult decision about something that might be happening in your life that you do want to change. So my message to you today is that we can get out of our own way by being aware of when we are buffering. Instead of buffering, if we can stop the buffering behavior long enough to see what's under it, we can find the actual cause of the buffering. So, what feelings have you been avoiding? What are the false pleasures you've been engaging in? In what way would your life be better if you didn't have these false pleasures? Are you ready to stop buffering and willing to feel some discomfort instead in order to move towards real well-being? I'm so glad you joined me for this episode of Get Out of Your Own Way. And to go even deeper, you can join me for Self Care Sundays, monthly drop in sessions. And to find out more, you can go to thehealingmodalities.com. You can also sign up for my weekly Self Care Seeds newsletter there. And join me again for Get Out of Your Own Way every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, and 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Next time on Get Out of Your Own Way, I'll be talking about how it's not better over there compared to where we are right now. It's tempting to think that once we've achieved a certain goal of ours, that our lives will be better than it is right now. But I want to offer that it won't necessarily be better, but it will be different. And so, what do you think you need to achieve in order for your life to be better? What would you get to think about yourself when you reach that goal? And what if that thought is available to you right now and you get to believe it? Until next time, have a great week, and I'll see you again next time. Take care. You have been listening to Get Out of Your Own Way. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care with me, April Yee. Tune in every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. In each episode, I present new questions that support you in building up your beliefs about yourself. To connect with me or for more information, you can email me at thehealingmodalities@gmail.com or visit my website, thehealingmodalities.com. See you soon.